Hello, and welcome to another One Lion of Code. I am One Lion, and the picture seems to, I'm gonna need to have a separate one for this scene, aren't I? Interesting. Because when I manipulate it up here, it's gonna show up differently in the other scenes. So I can't use the same one. I can't. So image AI gen image intro. I'm gonna pick an appropriate image for this screen. Well, hello, Dukasoft. I hope you're doing fantastic. Happy Friday to you. It is a wonderful, wonderful, amazing, gemazing Friday. And we're going to hang out here in my kitchen, library, bathroom. Oh, I'll just I'll give you a door to come through. That's not might look cool on this screen. Let's see. Let's put the door. First, let's get rid of this image here. Deleted. Then let's take this image here, put it here. Position. It's really hard to position. Position. It's going to be it's going to be smaller than I want it to be. That's okay. And we'll put it here. Ready? Okay. There. Feel free to walk through the door anytime. No guarantees on what's on the other side. Hello, Mojo Fawad, Mojo Bot, Mojo Discord Botted, Body Botter. Hope you're having a fantastic Friday. I am gonna be honest, I'm probably gonna struggle a lot today to keep up, but it is community day. I am feeling a little I'll say it this way. I am feeling sickly. And no, it's not the COVID kind of sickly feeling. I am just not feeling peak at my best, and it's really, really distracting. So if you see me run away, that's why. I won't be gone for too long, I hope, if I do need to run. But anyway, let's talk about today. Today is Community Day on the channel because we do Community Days on Friday days, which I forgot to put in the title. Whatever, I'll update that. And what Community Days are is a day where I invite you, the community. You what? Wait, are you being serious, Dukasoft, or are you making fun of how I said it? Fluvid 19. She is high live coding. But I invite you, the community, to our Discord stream stuff where your voice will come through on the stream, and you'll be able to have a conversation with us, everyone, the entire chat, all of it. Oh, you were being serious too. So you also got some sickliness. Oh yeah, I need to update this AI gen image too. That's why I need the AI gen image on this screen too. Give me a second to finish setting up, and then I'll invite you into the thing. Okay, I need that one on this scene so that before we go to the next scene, I can update it with, for example, we We had all of our doors today, so let me do a lion knocker. A what now? A door handle knocker. Which one of these do I like the most for today's stream? I like this one. Okay. See what it looks like and then position it here. Make it a little. Oh, that's like perfect fit, actually. So feel free to knock, and I'll invite you into the Discord voice channel in just a couple while I'm preparing myself mentally. This is the project that we've been working on throughout the stream. I'll probably be touching that a little bit while we are speaking. Also, I did remember to turn on the audio output for Discord this time, so it will be recorded. So if you're not comfortable having your voice recorded in a this stream will be posted to YouTube's 24 hours after the stream ends. No sooner than 24 hours after the stream ends. So if you aren't comfortable with that, then just know that your voice will be recorded. I don't know what I'm trying to say. Your voice will be recorded and kept forever for posterity on the YouTubes, on my channel, and in the VOD for however long the VODs stay live. Okay, with that, invitation is open to join the Discord voice channel. I will turn on my virtual camera and start there so that if you do hop into a voice channel, then you can use Discord's the actual room itself to hear live conversation with people like live coding.
That was instant.
Instant.
Incredible.
Instant fluffs.
Like this.
I need to turn you up in my ears and check your volume level.
Test, test. I
Yeah,
think I
your
was
volume level
muttering.
is good.
So, yeah, I might have just been muttering. As
Did
one
Asaf give
does.
you a shout out?
I don't know. Yeah, because I'm streaming. I will be streaming anytime now. Any day.
Anytime. It's been about 3 months. Sounds
Uh,
about right.
let's just say 7. Let's just say. And
Whoops.
that was, and then before that it was 7. And then before that it was 8 years or whatever. Anyway, so life is good. So we have topics, or we could talk about
Do
your
we?
code.
No, topics is great. That's what today is all about.
Yeah, you're like, I don't want to code today.
Oh no, I don't. I
Much
love
thinking.
coding. I love writing code.
Okay.
But these are all
For-
about talking about topics and stuff.
yeah, I like getting over the hump, and then I can code fluently. But if I'm not fluent, if I have any ambiguity, it's not fun at all. So,
Apocalypse.
but you get over the hump, and it's fine.
Mm.
But then I spend most of my career getting over the hump.
Oh jeez.
No, yeah. I think that's. I guess I'm joking about that, but not really. I think I just don't feel fluent most of the time.
Yeah. So are you meaning that in the flow state kind of way, or just don't have enough familiarity with the code?
Uh, yeah, I think it's related, but and I don't know what flow state is, and I can't tell if I'm in it. But I will say, like, if you ask me if I remember if I'm in flow state, like, how often does it happen? I would say quarterly.
Interesting.
So, people talk about getting into flow state, and, I can't be interrupted because I get into flow state. For me, it's like, nah, go ahead and interrupt me. I wasn't, I was struggling with documentation or learning how
Right.
ASP.NET authentication works again.
Right.
So,
There is never going to be a time when you're not going to do that.
yeah.
But yeah, so I think I've gotten a little bit better at getting interrupted. I used to be really, really, really bent out of shape if someone just like interrupted me mid thought or told me I needed to stop what I'm doing and pay attention to what they need me to pay attention to. I don't know that it's great still, that I have a good reaction it's still pretty. You get a death stare for at least a half second. Like, I'm sorry,
Uh,
what?
yeah. So anyway, I don't know about flow, and I don't know about I will say when I was a junior developer, I thought like, man, I'm gonna get so good at this thing, and then I'm just gonna sit down and code and know what I'm doing. And I do not think, and I think that happens to limited situations. Like there,
I know.
but I would say less than like a quarter of the time, even at my job where I was just doing .NET development against a database and the same framework we did the stuff with last week. Like it still was just like a quarter of the time. There was always something new. So anyway, so we have lots of topics.
Topic number 60?
Okay. That one was, I think, was it Mojo who was in chat? Welcome,
Oh,
Mojo. We
right,
can't hear
right.
you. Uh, Brought up on the Discord about documentation. So that's
That's
an
a good
interesting
one.
topic.
That's a really good one.
Yeah. I'll just give
Let's
my
see.
pitch. Here's the pitch.
I'm
No one
ready.
reads it, and I'm sorry. And it's just know if you write it. I don't know. There's actually a few pitches. Yes, you will read it if you're desperate, if you need it. And there are, I don't know.
Negative
Well,
two
that was a good
developers on the
take.
team.
What's your, what's your take? I've just muttered to myself for a minute.
It was just documentation. Show
After you ask that question,
everybody reads. But yeah, that's really interesting. So Mojo is saying, as you just muttered, that his boss asked for documentation after he asked the question. So he was already starting to prepare for that. I ran into a situation where I'm talking with the people from the place that I used to work because they're really just looking for a little bit more um, information on the scope of the kind of help that they might be looking for. And they have one of their corporate IT guys who's mostly a systems admin, automation kind of guy. He does lots of Python stuff, lots of PowerShell type of stuff.
yep.
And he's picking up the code base to at least evaluate it and find out how much work there is or if there are alternatives to maintaining that code base.
Hmm.
And so we were talking, and he got everything set up from all of that documentation that
Hmm,
I spent those last 3 weeks or however long it
nice.
was just working on. And the app that he was asking about was the one that I almost always assigned to the junior developer when they came in. And so
Are they
it's
still
kind of
there? Is the
no,
juniors?
they have
Okay.
nobody. They have
Yeah.
no developers. But he was like, I'm looking at the code and it doesn't look like what's in production, like just
Oh.
reading the code. And it's because the junior developer was working on the Blazor conversion of it and didn't
Mm,
have the original project in the solution.
mm,
So, like, I think I had asked either for keeping the original project in the solution and just telling it to compile the Blazor one, or have them at least side by side. So then he's like, I did see that you had the Team Foundation version control repo, and that one looked older, but that also doesn't look like the same code because that one was still the .NET Framework 4.7.2, and we went to
mm.
.NET Core and then Blazor, and I don't know, it was all over the place. So we spent some time on that, but thankfully now we have the original code in the repo so that they can continue dev work on Blazor.
That is so, like, of all the things you talked about, it is interesting that, how do I say this? Having a stable commit in the main or master or trunk branch is not even a given. Like, you know
Right.
what I'm saying? Like,
Yeah.
I just kind of assume because I've been at places for, I guess, almost 10 years now, but that have done that where the primary branch, whatever that is, like, is basically pushed to production.
Right.
Or if it's not, it will be soon.
And that's
And
what
that,
people code against.
yep. And that's my current assumption. And it's interesting when I find projects that aren't like that. And it does, I don't know. That's a big deal for me. I don't know.
No, it makes sense because like I mentioned before, when I came to this team that I'm currently working with, where the first thing that I did was opened up the repo and
Mm.
read the README to figure out how to set up my dev environment to
Oh,
do
yeah.
code work. There was nothing. I mean, there's stuff there, but it was completely inaccurate and did not help.
And that's normal. Even the
Yeah.
one when I was maintaining it and I really cared about that stuff, like it would just drip just a little bit. And it all, well, I guess you're saying there's absolutely nothing.
Oh
There's
no, no, no,
absolutely,
no. There was
there's
stuff
something.
there. Like
Yeah.
it says run the, .NET tool install whatever, and I
Yeah.
do that and then there's errors and it doesn't say anything about what errors you might encounter. And then they're like, "Yeah, so what you're supposed to do is add the dash non-interactive or dash interactive dash verbose so that you can get the link." And it's like, "Put that in the docs."
Yep. Speaking of keeping, and this is a thing on documentation, it's especially this new dev getting started stuff,
Mhm.
um, is that's kind of the first new dev task is like, here's access to the code base. We don't want you committing anything real. Try and get it set up and then make your first commit to be updating the documentation
Yeah,
on setup
nice.
because you're about to test it out again and
Yeah.
something's going to
So
go
as you're
wrong.
going through the docs, if you find anything bad,
Yeah,
then
you got to
make your
fix it.
first commit that. That's really smart, actually. I like that.
Yeah. Well, and I will say, like, better than docs is like, I'm a big PowerShell scripting guy, and it gets weird in the modern era when, you know, 1/4 of your .NET developers are on a Mac, roughly 1/4 of them. That's about the number. Maybe a third, maybe half. Um. Anyway,
Yeah,
uh,
that's really interesting, Mojo. So, like, are you saying that there was actual documentation saying don't ever use outline none, and then just about all of your anchor tags and buttons have outline none? Because that is like a major accessibility ding. You're not supposed to ever get rid of outline. Oh, yeah, yep. Okay.
don't do outline none with every focus outline. Look, welcome Mojo to development. You now disagree with the team's decisions. What are you going to do about
Yeah,
it?
exactly. Oh, man.
This is life. Like, what are you going to do? How are you going to resolve the conflict with your basically with the rest of your team? And you don't know who actually cares about this.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. And the answer is your full team should, but who
oh, you
actually
have to
cares
make.
about it on your team?
All right, it's his job to make them accessible. All right, so that makes it pretty easy. So you have an argument, which is, or you have a mandate that says, I have the right to do this.
I agree too, because but
Conflict
yes,
none. Important.
it's like if you guys want me to get us up to standards, then we need to get rid of all of these focus nuns
Yep.
or outline nuns. Sorry, whatever.
So I guess this isn't exactly what I'm referring to when you care about something, but it's not necessarily important. Because everyone has those. Everyone has. Just not to break it. That's perfect. That's perfect. That sounds like me, actually. Yeah, just keep it working, and I'll promise not to look at whatever resulting CSS you make. So, anyway.
We have, oh man, that's funny that you say that, Mojo. I was just assigned for our next release we have a keyboard test that tells you to push every key on your keyboard, and there's an issue when you have your function keys turned on or off or something, and you push the Windows key, and instead of doing only the function key itself, it does the functions. You know what I'm talking about, right? Like if you have
And
volume control on a couple of your F keys, it'll
yeah,
do
yeah,
that.
yeah. Like, so y'all are doing like, and you've hinted it's like some sort of laptop manufacturer. Don't talk about it, but y'all are doing some low level keyboard stuff if you're
Yeah.
actually touching the function keys.
But we're not at the same time because it's all JavaScript. And that's how the code behind the back end does the
Yeah.
keyboard test. It's like I'm just going to attach a listener to the document, and whenever a key is pressed, I'm going to check for is this key, this key, this key, this key, and they're like that's a UI thing. And I'm like, no.
It's, I mean,
Just because it's JavaScript doesn't mean that it's a UI thing. It's a functionality thing.
and they're programming everything in Blazor uh, inside of a
No,
WPF app.
no. So like all of
Okay.
the back end stuff, this
Uh-huh.
is this is the terrible part.
Okay.
So each of these tests is its own project that lives in the backend project repo.
Okay.
And they have their own HTML, JavaScript, and CSS that we bootstrap into the app essentially. We just present whatever is in the
Oh,
backend code.
I think you've talked about this. That's right.
Yeah.
So this is the keyboard test. Interesting.
Mhm.
All right. Well, the obvious solution is get a
Yeah,
lower
watch out.
level
Yes.
access to the keyboard. What? Right.
Exactly. Exactly. We're running the .NET runtime, so why can't we just use .NET specific stuff for checking key
Go
presses?
deeper. Even go deeper. But
Even deeper, C
I don't.
sharp or C plus plus.
I don't want to. Yeah, Win32, again, there's like four
Mm.
developers who know how to program Win32. One of them is becoming you.
Yeah,
But
I
once
am
you
heavily.
learn it, the other guy will die off of old age because he's 80. So,
Where's
yeah,
my another or WPF still? I think is what I called it. But yeah, now that you mentioned that, or now that Mojo mentioned something. Oh, never mind. Now that
brightness versus central.
you mentioned something else, and then I interrupted myself and you. Don't remember. Keyboard
Keyboard
traps.
traps. I mean, it's all in
That
chat.
just
If
sounds
he mentioned
terrible.
it, it's all in chat. Yeah, it's whatever. Just think of it in the Akbar sense. It's a trap. There you go.
Gosh.
There you go. We redeemed it. We redeemed it. It's clean again.
So look at this magic. I have my DWM set window attribute from the Win32 API that only works on Win11, aka Windows version or build version 10.0.0.81 and above.
Really? 11 only, huh? So
Yeah.
they're introducing new stuff in 11. Man,
Yeah. And it
I
works
just
so
imagine
awesome, dude.
everything. Yeah. Anyway, everything new in Win32, I can't imagine people would use because it's like a 30-year-old product or at this point or
Right.
whatever. I can't count years, but
Check this out though. I did remember the thing though. We were talking about the Win32 API.
mm,
I don't think our apps are allowed to call Win32 API methods.
hey, that makes it easy on you. You can sit back and be like, "Oh, my hands are tied.
Yeah.
Couldn't possibly code up better keyboard access." Which, as you're saying, is the other team's job anyway, so that's
I
fine.
mean, I'm on that team. It's
Oh, you
just
are.
we have one person that was mostly working on these tools and tests and stuff,
Yeah.
including the UI for them. And then we have another person that's working on the third party tools that need to be integrated into the app and all that fun stuff. And then there's me who's supposed to be focusing on UI, but I'm kind of doing each, all of it,
Everything.
because I can. And I've proven that I can. And that
Good.
I'm reliable. Or I hope I have. Have you heard of Windows dot
You can stop there, and the
32?
answer is no. You were typing a NuGet package name named Windows. I'm like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah. Hold on.
All right,
Give me
interesting. What do
12
you got?
seconds and I'll find it. Oh, shut up, stomach. Oh, that really hurts. Um, no, I'm so lost because I have so many windows open.
We can also talk about rehabbing CSS. Mojo,
Rehabbing CSS, what does that mean?
like Mojo's seeing all this disgusting CSS.
Oh.
It's tough. At some point, like what I've seen are guy who was super into front end, and he was out of a team of like 30 devs, he was the one who really got into the front end. He rewrote all of the CSS on the front end.
Mm.
The problem is he had to rewrite it for the entire website. So just keep that in mind.
Yeah, I could
Bootstrap.
see myself doing that with my own CSS that I
Yeah.
did for this project specifically.
I have rehabbed a tiny chunk of our, of Page's CSS in the past, and it can be done. Like I think the previous developer was using the float property, and it was whatever. It
Mhm.
worked ish, but whenever I needed to make a change, I had to completely blow that up. So
Yeah, old practices, man.
Mojo, welcome. Here's the deal, Mojo. You have to develop the scar tissue where you can just look at everything and it's garbage, and you're like, it's fine. You
Yeah.
have to numb yourself, numb
It's like,
yourself to the pain.
whatever.
Yeah. I will say, like, how do I say this? At this job, I figured out what's more important because I spent a year here as just a senior dev, and kind of did some changes, cleaned up one of their repos and it made it really nice to live in, and then realized that project that I cleaned up didn't really matter in the grand scheme of things. And so now I'm doing the operation stuff, and I saved a third of our cloud costs last year along with our team, and our team's like 3 people. So we cut our cloud costs by 1/3. That's pretty big relative to like now you can load that project and it builds the SQL database automatically. You know the
Yeah.
difference? Like there's a so if you can find those, like it's actually my coworker talks about this all the time. If you can find the things that will move the needle on whatever you're working at, like you can focus on those things and then maybe the CSS becomes less important. But and most teams, especially Scrum teams, will just say, push the tickets, and it sounds like a downer, but it's fine. It's fine. See the scar tissue. It's fine.
It's okay. I mean,
It's it's fine. You can
and then you
enjoy
do the
your
hand
job.
wavy thing.
Yeah,
But
it's
like for
fine.
me,
It's fine.
like for Mojo's comment, I'm looking at my own code and I'm like, yeah, I just want to scrap all of my CSS. Now that all of the UI is put together and I'm no longer in semi design mode because I had that design, but it wasn't for um, different size. It wasn't responsive. It was only the static content, one screen, one what's the word? Scenario, I guess. It didn't cover all the cases, all of the statuses. It's like just build off of this, sure. But now that it's all done, I want to scrap all of the CSS and restructure it and recreate it from the beginning with the full app and knowing what it's supposed to look like. So have you heard of this package, CS Win32?
I mean, no.
It's
Who
like
wrote it? From Microsoft, huh?
Microsoft. Yeah, it's perpetually in beta.
Okay. No, it's
It tells you
you
that you need
get what
this
you get.
file. Oh, really?
Oh, so they figured, yes, so they actually wrote the P invoke, so you don't have to.
Right.
Is that what I'm about to see? Is
It
that
is a source gen or p
right?
invoke, and all you should have to do is something like I want the entire DWM API.
Yep.
So if
Oh,
you saw that was the one that is here, I could just ask for only this method and it would give it to me. But when I rebuilt, you can see you can see
interesting. So it
you
uh
can you can see
I just trust it'll happen. I'll trust. Maybe you have to build for it to happen or something.
I don't know if this JSON file is required to.
Vincent, what's up to you as well? Um,
Vincent.
Also, Mojo asked a question, and reading it made me sad, but I'm thankful. But then I have my own Kubernetes pain to deal with. So Mojo has
Oh yeah.
his front end pain, and I have my uh, why is this thing failing in production thing. So
Let
we all have
me.
our things.
I'm just going to
Uh,
copy the thing that I
Mojo,
made
you'd have to
before.
provide if you actually want help, and see, I assume you want help, I will happily attempt to work through it. Hey, Mojo, you can play with Kubernetes anytime. But once it's in production, you have to fix it. That's the secret. Like everyone will just stare at you.
Yeah.
And then if they
And then
stare
it's
at
on
you for
you.
longer than 2 hours, you're fired. That's not true. But yeah, if you can't make progress on a critical issue or find a workaround at least.
And like our apps would make sense to, well, not fully, but the apps for RMA, for the Rocky Mountain Arsenal, I keep pointing to them even though they're that way. Um,
They're that way. Yeah.
they could stand to like take them out of IIS, put them either into containers that can, and we would only need like 2 containers at most for the amount of traffic that we have, and
Hmm.
that way we can have like DDMS running on its own container, essentially taking up as many resources as it wants, and then the other apps can use the other one. Um,
Yeah.
but anyway, it just sounds like it would benefit from either running only on Kestrel, using Kestrel, or in some containerized way.
Yeah. Containers aren't easy to set up on a server yet. Not easy enough. But like I very much recommend them as the way to deploy stuff going forward. Just containers. Kubernetes, I don't think is worth it unless you're auto scaling, and even then, cloud stuff has auto scaling without Kubernetes now. By the way, Vincent asked, "When did you start programming?" What's your
You
answer?
first. You first.
On me. Basic age 12, had a C book age 13, didn't actually program until age 18, taking what is it called? The AP computer science thing.
There you
So
go.
there you go.
That's my
12,
exact
13,
answer.
18. Really cool. Yeah.
Yeah. Like I remember doing basic or Q basic actually.
Mm,
Well, basic on a Commodore 64 and then Q basic in middle school elective classes or something.
mm.
And that was a lot of fun. But never actually did any real programming until my first year of college, until I was 18.
So there you go. There's the boring answers. I don't know if that's boring. It's the
Yeah,
spice of
you
life.
actually helped me narrow down how I usually answer that because I usually use about, I don't know, 30 minutes worth of words.
14, around 5 months ago. Yep. Well, don't expect to be good at it. I was just talking about how I continue feeling like I'm too slow for the entire career. I get paid for it. Right. Mojo says
You're using a jQuery
jQuery
plugin to update a
plugin. That's the best
context
kind
menu.
of jQuery. Sorry.
If you're using Blazor, there's this really cool Blazor context menu component library that is super duper easy. Excuse me. MVC Razor page. You can add Blazor to your MVC Razor web pages as long as it's a .NET Core app. I
Is he
accidentally put
though?
a smile.
Is he allowed? That we're back
Oh
to the
yeah, are you
conflict with the
allowed?
team. This is back to the conflict with the team question.
Right, and they're .NET framework. Doesn't matter anyway.
Done any
So
conspiracies today?
conspiracies. So this
Yeah,
is
usually I
the
have a lot of
library.
hot takes and I
Oh
number
yeah,
them. But
yeah.
I would say the container thing is a hot take. It's just not that hot or spicy. All right, what do we got? You
I
got a
mean, it could
context?
be because like
Yeah,
you're
that's what.
essentially saying don't use Kubernetes to a lot of
Oh, definitely don't use Kubernetes.
people.
I have to go through an
There's your
upgrade.
hot take.
There's the don't use Kubernetes. But it's
Use computers.
2023, so there's a lot of good alternatives, is the point. Maybe in whatever year it was a slightly different answer. We got a lot of value of it. Again, we cut cloud costs by a massive amount, almost completely by moving all these Windows running web servers and, console apps or Windows services, I guess. We moved a ton of those to Kubernetes and they use a fraction of a CPU because they sit idle all the time. That's the secret with programs. We're still struggling with how much CPU to give them because we look at our average and we're like, well, the average is 0. But then, like, if you give a website 0 CPU, guess what?
Right.
When someone needs it, you have to plan for when someone actually uses it.
Yeah, it's
So we
almost
give
like
our
you need
websites a lot.
to filter out all of the non-use.
See,
Like
well,
when it's used, what is the average CPU?
yes. What's funny is this is again a conflict with the team. I don't talk about where I work, so this is safe. Anyway, I have disagreements with our dev and my CTO boss who think we should, scale a certain way, and I basically say I don't care that much. It doesn't cost us that much money. That y'all are wrong. um, so they're scaling up a little too high, and I'm looking at the actual usage, and it's not that high. But I will say also, if you can get what they call scale to 0 working,
Right.
and
Yes.
since we're using a lot of RabbitMQ queues, we can actually look at how many messages are in a queue, and if there are 0, then we don't have to run a program, and we can
It's
keep
kind
it
of funny
off
because
all week.
RabbitMQ is like one of the best queue systems in my opinion.
Yeah, I have
And
no complaints.
you just called it RabbitMQQ like it's a bad thing.
No, well,
I know what you
Oh,
meant.
I
It
didn't
just
even hear
sounded
that.
like you said
I was trying to be,
RabbitMQQ.
what's funny is sometimes I say things I don't notice. I was saying RabbitMQ, a queue that exists in
Qs.
RabbitMQ, but I said it in the other order and it sounded like QQ, which is funny because I'm going to start using that, but I don't think anyone will understand. If I can write it in text, our
Yeah, yeah.
RabbitMQQ server
That's
is
fine.
in QQ mode, it's the
Oh,
tears
I
emoji.
mean,
Vincent
what
wants in.
else are we doing today, Mojo? I'm not really doing any exploration in my code stuff because oh,
We couldn't possibly work on code today.
yeah.
Vincent does
Like,
want in, by the way, if you
oh,
really.
oh, I'm so blind.
Yeah.
Where is the window? Are y'all ready from some? Wait, no, he doesn't.
Oh, you have to get in. I think he was asking if he had permission to even get in the voice. It's true.
Oh
You don't
yeah.
want to commit to getting in the voice channel and then get pulled in. So I don't. Anyway, so
Oh,
you have
I
to get
guess.
in a waiting room, Vincent,
Yeah.
and then
Like, do you want to just sit
sure,
in the
get in.
waiting room, or do you want to be pulled into the stream room when you?
This is what we call asynchronous.
Yeah. Don't forget the
You
delayed and drop packets.
you must embrace asynchronicity. So okay.
Yeah.
Well,
Like, I don't know, jQuery stuff for me is kind of straightforward, easy as far as defining elements. But when you're talking about passing it into some external library that I have no clue about, I want to read about it so I can help you figure it out. What a
I
by passing in menu.
I'm glad I skipped the jQuery plugin era of web development.
Mm,
I guess I haven't passed it since we're still in that era, but
yeah.
I'm happy I personally, autobiographically speaking, have not had to do that kind of development. Some things are just hard because of the framework, and I think that's one of them. I don't know.
Yeah, and it's weird because I did find it pretty easy to understand once you understand this dollar sign. Because that's really just the big mystification thing. It's like, what is this dollar sign? Um,
Um,
but everything else is just a wrapper on vanilla JavaScript. It's an easier way to call JavaScript functions in my opinion. But I still prefer vanilla JavaScript anyway. If I need to write it, that is. I prefer C
That's
sharp.
fine. I have no opinions. I have no real opinions. So what else we got?
Just converting it
Conflicts with the
to the drop
team.
down.
Yeah.
Conflicts with the team. So I had one today.
Oh goodness. See, you're not.
Go figure.
We know where you work, so it's a little different. You got to be like,
It's okay. I don't mind.
no,
We
none of
were,
them care enough to watch your stream. I
yeah.
know that from
Well,
having
even if they
coworkers.
do, it's like this is still just my opinions and discussions about it. It's like,
That's a fair point. And they can get in the stream waiting room too,
yeah.
and we can hash it out live on the internet and on
But
YouTube.
this one isn't anything like super major,
Yeah, yeah.
but we were going over since we're doing our release really soon. We're supposed to be in code lockdown, so we're working on the efforts for the next release and branches and stuff. Um, there was a point made that like some of our WPF windows are not responding to the theme changes because they don't have stuff like dynamic dynamic whatever they're called. For example, background color is a dynamic resource named app background or something. So they don't use this. So we have some screens that currently have black text for a button when it should be white text. And they're WPF windows when the majority of our app is Blazor. So what I was recommending was let's just go ahead and convert those individual windows that have the one screen of content only to Blazor and then display the content that way because it would be super duper fast to do that and it would respond to all of the CSS changes. It would get state and everything shared throughout the app. And he's like, no, that's too much. How do you word it? Too much
I,
cost for too little payoff.
yeah, but and I get it. Like, it's just I think what he really meant was it's too icky for me to think about actually converting things to Blazor. Because when I look at like if you said Peter set up a Blazor thing, I'd get this icky feeling. I'd be like, well, oops, I created an ASP.NET MVC. Uh,
Half the disc came in right when you
I
said
accidentally created a MVC app instead, and
it.
oops, it's done. I wouldn't be that much of a jerk, but you see what I'm saying? Like it would just
Right.
naturally like, oh, by the way, hello, Avidus.
I mean,
Look,
I
it's a
think I
technical
was
term.
planning on doing what you're recommending, which is I'll do both because they're both going to be really straightforward. Or the Blazor one is going to be really straightforward. The one where I need to fix the WPF thing means making sure that I have a resource. What are they called?
Mm,
Resource dictionary
oh
that
yeah,
has the styles that I need to apply to the buttons, and that all of the WPF windows, which we only have like 5 that are actual WPF, use these dynamic resources that match into the app, as opposed to let's just go ahead and use the same CSS in a Blazor pay a
mm,
Razor component, Blazor component, whatever, and then display that component when this WPF window shows up, which is just Blazor Web View.
speaking of ickiness, you just reminded me like of my WPF days. Like all of my WPF app when we built it, like I don't think any of us were comfortable with the WPF aspect of it. We could program in C sharp and do business logic and use
Uh
our
huh.
it's not Pluralsight, it's I think it was Infragistics.
Yes.
Control, we could use our data grid controls pretty well, but once it got to like anything weird, all of us were kind of lost. So I assume that's the context.
Yeah.
That's the
Like
knowledge context of all your coworkers when it comes to this Blazor and WPF stuff to some extent.
I think the people that would have been around would have been Dev Express because they've been around since the beginning
No,
of WPF at least.
all of them,
The S
all of
one that
them.
I can't think of.
Grape
Soap
City
Sushi?
advertises. I'm going to advertise
Grape
for them. This is
City.
a sponsored stream now. We're gonna, and by the way, since this is
That's why
a
I'm trying to
sponsored
name
stream,
all of them because it's like you named one. I'll try to name all the ones I can think of.
Telerik, Dev Express,
Telerik,
Infragistics, Grape City
Syncfusion.
is trying. Good luck to them. I will just
Yeah.
say the most annoying thing when I used to attend a .NET user group, which this is like boomer talk right now, like when people attended user groups in person, specifically for .NET, which by
Mhm.
the way, Houston, where I am, it had a giant one. We were one of the biggest in the country because I don't know why, honestly. There's bigger cities. Dallas is technically a bigger metroplex.
We have
Anyway,
the people.
yeah, we loved our .NET here. Mojo on West Side. The meetup was also West Side. Anyway, by the way, there's a North HD node that is run by the Akanet guy. You grew up in Cyprus? Hey, I know that's Northwest Side. Um, anyway, so what was I saying? So they would have giveaways, and it's like, here's a book. Like, sweet.
Yeah.
I have an X and A book that I got because they were giving away books. So
What is
I got,
XNA?
yeah. And there were a bunch of other books that I got that I never read and just put them away forever. But there, you'd get some real things and then you get some swag, and then they're like, our grand prize is a license to use Infragistics for personal projects.
Wow.
Yeah, X and A became monogame, and I think they stole most of the how do I say this, structures and API for pretty much every game framework, Unity.
Aha.
Anyone who does C sharp, like I see a lot of vector, or maybe it's just a typical game thing where it's like vector 2, vector 3. Like a lot of the API seems to be still used, even though XNA definitely died and it became monogame. Anyway,
That's
so Mojo, we're brothers and neighbors. So by the way, one Cyprus is like 30 miles away from me, so
wow.
it's
As
quote
the crow
close.
flies, or
I I mean it's all flat open, so yes, as the crow flies or the car drives, either way. Yeah, it's all good. Anyway, um, yeah, big metroplex. Um, he might actually have grown up in the closer part of Cyprus. Cyprus itself is like a 10-mile radius area. Anyway, circle. All right, well, there's your geography lesson, and
and a grand prize of infragistics personal. Did you win
yeah,
it?
and they'd give you that as a grand prize, and I talked to the guy running it. I was like, this isn't a prize, this is an advertisement, and you're acting like, and he was like, what are you talking about? It's great. Like, no,
What
it's
are you
not.
talking about?
Yeah, he was an older fellow. God bless him. Nah. Yeah, older fellow. I think he honestly thought it was a pretty good prize. Like, why? Who wouldn't want to evaluate
Yeah,
a
yeah.
a data grid you could convert your Excel documents you use for your home projects? Anyway, I'm very.
Like
Anyway, so I talk bad
there's a
about
lot of
those
stuff that's
vendors.
like that where it's like we're going to give you a 1 year free subscription
Yeah.
to this thing that you will integrate into your personal projects and then you'll have to pay for the rest of time after that.
Personal projects only. That was the key where you're like, what? You're not even going to let me use it at work? Like, the
Oh
idea is that,
jeez.
anyway, life is good. That was old. That was boomer.net user group stuff. So,
Kind of funny
anyway,
because I was looking at, sorry, when we got here for the first time, how do you even word that? When we came to
arrived.
Colorado, when we arrived in Colorado, um, I was like almost immediately invited to some .NET user groups on the Faith book and the book
Hmm.
face. And it was like, I might be actually interested in going to some of those in person
Yeah.
with a bunch of strangers and people that I don't know. And then I talked myself out of it. I was
Yeah.
like, no,
I,
no, I'm good.
I went with a friend the first
Mm.
like 3 years, and then, you know, maybe yeah, I still, anyway, yeah,
Well, you
it's
guys are my
always
only
awkward.
friends, so I wouldn't be able to go with anyone physically.
Yeah. Um, yeah, it's, It's very awkward. And by the way, the user groups are incredibly awkward. I mean, they're full of us, so we're all just standing around, staring at the ground, eating
Yeah.
pizza, and then I'll show up and like say something crazy, and then everyone looks over anyway. So,
I'd be rubbing my arm the whole time. It gets
but
smoother
it
than a
doesn't.
baby's butt.
Oh goodness. Um, yeah. Anyway, it's COVID killed most of the user groups as well as in my case Houston traffic, and I have this is my conspiracy. User groups died, and that's okay. YouTube has really good lectures online now,
Hmm.
so you can get a much better lecture by sitting at home and watching your YouTube video.
And
Um,
also meetup.com
yeah, yeah,
website
yeah.
thing.
That's what I mean. Well, no, no, no. I mean those died. Like Houston used to have like a billion of these, and there's quite a smaller number. They're basically who the ones that still run are run off of the love of the organizer, but they are
Mm.
definitely anyway.
Yeah, it's
The
weird that they
energy isn't
wouldn't
there.
have embraced and transitioned over to some live streaming media or
Yeah,
way of
and
meeting up.
I think who was it? I have watched a Twitch stream. Uh, of course, it's a Twitch stream of one of the user groups. It was I don't know his full name. His Twitch name is One Kev Griff, so it's like Kevin Griffin, but I don't actually know. One Kev Griff.
Why does it have to
I'll
start
type
with
it.
one?
That's what because look, don't ask me. That's his deal. So oh yeah, you gotta look. You've got to fight him. You have to kick him off the platform. There can only
Look,
be
there's only one.
one
There can
one.
only be one.
Yeah, there can. That's perfect. That'll be your catchphrase now. I'm sorry I brought up the other one, but
The other
anyway,
one. But that's
he
just
did the
one. That's
hybrid.
not one.
And I actually attend the Houston functional group about a third of the time, and they do hybrid. So I show up in
They
person,
actually
and they
functional? Or are they more
oh
like
goodness,
socially inept like us?
the functional programming. We have some
Oh,
rowdy things.
functional programming. That's even
Functional
more.
programming user
I'm
group.
kidding. I'm
Yeah,
sorry.
I will not comment about whether they're a functional group or not. No, it's actually a good group. I like a lot of people there. Anyway. So anyway, I show up in person, but then they have their like world class speaker just dial in. Yeah, see, okay, it is Kevin Griffin. Okay, so he anyway, he was running their user group for whatever city. You can find him on Twitch or whatever. But let's
Yeah,
not
I mean that's kind
advertise
of what our
actually
Fridays
doing.
are. They're pretty much user groups.
Yeah, yeah.
Maybe we'll
I
just
think it's the same
officially
energy
call
for
them
me.
that.
I enjoy this in the same way. I enjoy attending that functional user group.
Sounds like you didn't enjoy attending that functional user group.
I enjoy it a lot. I will say
I'm
what's
terrible at
interesting
this.
What's interesting is we discussed GPT, I think in January for about 2 hours after the lecture ended. It was
Oh,
ridiculous.
geez.
It was, hey, we all had stuff to say, and it was
Yeah,
earlier. It was earlier. We can
absolutely.
talk about
Oh,
GPT for the next hour, I guess.
yeah. Well, let me just bring up one small resource on that. And of course, it's Sagetti, but it's even though I am showing Sagetti stuff, these are my own views and opinions, and
You're
not
not employed
necessarily
as Deb
reflective.
Relations for Sagetti yet.
That is correct. Or
When you have
ever.
1,000 concurrent viewers, you're going to be.
This Playing with Reality podcast is a guy that was like the initial thing that it was about was just talking about metaverse and AR, VR, all of the virtual technologies and stuff. But the beginning of season 2 just started, and he's been talking about AI a lot closer. Like the last episode of the previous season leading into um wait, the last episode of the previous season, 2022 in tech, was very geared around AI stuff. And
Yep.
and they have the real discussions. Well, I still can't call them real discussions, but they do bring up some really good points about stuff like how do we even enforce copyright when it's a machine that is going over thousands, millions of pictures over the internet. and it doesn't honor any of the copyright stuff.
It
It just
does
learns off
not.
of it. And so
That
they
it does
started
not.
talking about that, and it's like when you're getting these responses from ChatGPT, how do you know that they are actually not biased responses? How can you trust anything that it's giving you? It's a generative model. It has no idea about real situations. It's just here's a pattern. You
It
know
doesn't
what
know
the
the
end
truth. Yeah.
result is supposed to look like. So just make something that looks like that result. That kind of stuff. And I was like, oh,
Okay.
I love hearing
That
this.
funny enough, we discussed that at the functional programming user group,
Mm.
and I asked the guy like, in your area of expertise, because he's a sociologist, what what's your opinion of Wikipedia? And he's like, it's terrible.
No.
And so, because I was comparing, like, well, what about human curated versus GPT?
Mm-hmm.
And the idea is even the human curated system doesn't lead to perfection.
Yeah,
It's
I
just
mean, just like our
different problems.
conversation right here is you're making this statement as
Yeah.
if it's true, and you're backing it as if it's true, and I'm agreeing with you, or I would agree with you most likely if it wasn't your tone that I was listening to, but I'm
Yeah.
more inclined to agree with you because you're
Okay.
posing it as this is
Authoritative.
fact.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So that's how
And it,
Wikipedia
yeah.
also works, in my
And for
opinion.
the record, everything I say is hogwash. Everything I say is hogwash. Why pin that?
And he actually
I understand. Okay, thank you. I understand. Yeah, don't take it too serious because I definitely don't. And I say some whoppers every now and then. I'm like, did I actually say that? Did I mean it? No. So you gotta call me out. I need someone to call me out from
I
time
mean,
to
I
time.
do on occasion.
Great.
Like the whole
Good.
documentation thing, you're like, nobody reads documentation. I'm like, I can't accept that blanket statement. I read documentation. So here are a couple examples where documentation actually helps somebody out.
All right.
Just kidding.
I um Joel Spolsky from the ancient world from a previous era, October 2000. Anyway, he said something to the effect of if you want people to read your documentation, you need to have them not talk to you. Like if they ask a question and you need it documented, yeah, Joel on software. He had wrote a billion great essays literally 20 years ago and then stopped writing because he's a rich man. He was the other half of Stack Overflow that probably funded uh, Jeff Atwood doing the work. Anyway, so but he
As
got he
well as
got
Trello.
yeah, uh, and the when he was writing Joel on software, his products weren't as from my perspective, weren't as successful. It was Fog Bugs and a thing called City Desk, which was basically a front page for blogging. Um, so anyway, but don't worry, he's rich. He's fine. He'll do fine without my approval. Anyway, he said if you want people to, this is actually a super good tip. If you want people to improve documentation, they ask you a question, you need it documented. You say, "Give me a second, I'll write the document," and then you just point them to it. And then the idea is instead of having a conversation where you just simply answer their question directly, you say, go read the docs that I just wrote and tell me if you have any questions. And basically, they're
Yeah,
testing out your docs.
right.
Um, yeah.
So, in order to respond to a question, you're writing the doc that would respond to that question,
hmm
and then they're
And
reading
forcing
that.
them and not giving them any other info and forcing them to try and get it out of the doc.
Huh.
And that's forces them to test it. Of course, they if you're like, "Hey, boss, go read the doc," like, of course, that comes into like, yeah, little,
uh, what? I'm sorry, what?
yeah, boss, go read the doc. I'm not going to answer you directly. Like, it gets, time and
Oh my
place.
gosh. That hit a nerve. That nerve is still exposed. The one where I wrote a considerate email with a bottom line up front, one line
Yeah.
of statement, and then two spaces. And I say, here's details if you want more information on this, and then the rest. He couldn't even be bothered to read the one line on top before he called me immediately and was like, I haven't had time to read your email and too many words. Like,
He escalated to a phone call.
yeah. And I'm like, I'm
I
busy right now. I didn't need an immediate answer to this.
yeah. Uh, yeah. I used to be like anxious about making phone calls, like pretty anxious. I
Yeah.
had a data entry job and then a IT support job, but I had to shave that off. How do I say that? Um, yeah, more scar tissue. Just
You had to lance
you
it.
know, yeah, or just yeah, just keep calling people until the pain goes away.
Yeah.
Because
It's
anyway,
funny. I'm still like phone calls I can do and sound confident about, but I have so many nerves around them.
mm,
But the funny thing about it is I used to work at a tech support call center,
hmm
so I would be answering phones all day and helping people with their technical issues. Then I worked human resources, which had a lot of phone conversations with applicants and existing employees. Ugh.
but were you calling out? Was it outbound
Yes, yeah.
calls?
So the human
Mm,
resources one was a lot of outbound callings because I was
mm.
the um, I information systems security information system security officer, ISAO, administrative officer, and that meant needing to get in contact with all of the individual organization. What were they called? Anyway, the representatives from each of the organizations that our HR office serviced and get their IASO in sync with human resources so that we can get all of their accounts and everything set up. Oh,
Uh, it's funny at a
it's,
small company, we do literally all of that. Like I'm the backup for the other guy who does all the accounts set up and manages the list, and he just made the list this year, which I think anyway. That's one of my pet peeves is no one seems to keep track of what systems they use. So anyway, my last job, it was more of an issue when we had onboarded about 20 new devs in a few months and no one wrote down the list and it was not my job. I just watched it happen. All the new devs show up and they have GitHub access and nothing else. And you're like, well, at least they got GitHub, I
mm,
guess.
yeah,
I will
that was a
also say,
major thing.
yeah,
Massive.
yeah. Well,
You will also say,
nah, nah.
no,
Well,
you
okay,
can't
I
bait
will
me
say
like
for
that.
my ops position, it makes sense that for new ops people, you kind of ease them into their admin permissions, depending on how much you trust them. It really is about trust. It's kind of crazy because,
Right.
developers, you don't actually have to trust them to give them GitHub access, believe it or not. Because I don't think, what is the
Like,
worst you
unless
could
they
do?
know how to delete histories somehow.
Yeah, I know. Well, you can put, if you don't protect your branches, they can force push, but everyone else will have a copy on their machine.
Right.
Which, fun fact, one of our guys at my last job actually, I think he terraform deleted. No, I can't remember how he did it, but he completely wiped out our GitHub repo. Like the repo was gone.
Whoa.
And we kind of giggled because it was such a
Giggled.
classic one, but also, yeah, we all kind of giggled because it was like, well, we all have the backups, we all have our Git repos on our machines and it was gone, so it wasn't like there's a certain type of bad update that like wipes out everyone's local history, and I don't mean that in the Git term, but like just imagine, I think I remember in Team Foundation, the TF version
Hmm,
control,
hmm.
like I even would say copy paste a folder when I was doing something dangerous, but it would track your folders like anyway, it was kind of magical in how it would
Yeah,
update
yeah.
every copy of your folder even though you had copy pasted it. Anyway, so what I'm saying is updating the server didn't matter, so we just had a good laugh. He wasted a few hours of his life trying to recover it, and then we pushed.
And that was
I think
only
we
a few
just,
hours.
yeah, it wasn't that bad.
That's
Um,
surprising.
and I mean the main branch was probably much quicker, but he had to find all the branches and like repush and anyway.
Oh, not quite the situation that happened with the file server in my previous job.
Mm,
I don't know if you
right.
know about that one or remember
Mm-mm,
that one.
mm-mm.
So we had a systems admin guy who can't really call him that. And it was a day when we were trying to migrate from on premise to the cloud and something about needing that's what it was. One of the virtual machines locked up because the drive was full. And so I happened to just leave for lunch while this guy, it was his job to research it. And I'm like, you know,
Yeah,
really like, should we really
troubleshoot.
leave this to him? So I was at lunch in my wife's office and he pops his head in and he's like, well, I found out that there are some snapshots that are taking up a lot of space that we don't need. So I'm going to go ahead and just delete those. I'm like,
Just wiped them.
make sure that you back them up somewhere. Oh yeah, we have backups. They're all on tapes and they get taken to the bank every Monday or whatever it is. And I'm like, whatever. And then I'm like, I remember looking at the backups on vSphere and they're cumulative backups. And he's talking about
Wait,
just
you're saying
deleting random ones.
incremental? Like
Incremental,
incremental?
yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And he's gonna just go through and delete the biggest ones. And
Uh,
so, like, I got this cold feeling, but I just finished lunch. And then suddenly, everyone is complaining about not having access to the file share
oh
because he
no.
deleted a virtual disk as well.
Oh no.
And
Yeah.
so we're like, okay, we're kind of hosed. So let's just go ahead and restore that virtual disk using the backups, using the snapshots that are now missing random points in time. So we can't use the incremental restore. And yeah, that was weeks of time that I spent taking all of the snapshot virtual disks and then pulling the files off of them and recovering as much as I could with the latest versions. And we still lost a lot of data. During that time, we are like, well, let's just see if we can get a tape from the bank that has the most recent data. But first, let's look at the backups. Well, the backups weren't backing up because there was no space on the backup system. And they hadn't been backing up for about 10 years.
10 years. Okay, when you said tapes, I was like, man, the last time
Yeah.
I've seen tapes
Yeah.
was 20 years ago almost.
And
So,
so these tapes that they've been taking and storing in the bank
mhm,
have been empty.
mhm. This is so you have yet another, and this is where like it's like
This
a
story is making me
morality
nauseous.
story for developers that says test your backups because they're not
Mm-hmm.
backups unless you can test them. So you have yet another anecdote that confirms that.
Absolutely. It was crazy.
Yeah.
I could not believe that situation at all. Don't worry, it's all on zip disks.
Oh man, those existed. What about those? Yeah.
I can still hear the sound they made when you put them in the drive.
I don't think I've only seen them. I've
Oh, I
never
never had
needed
to
to
use them.
use them. Yeah, it's all good. Uh, but yeah,
No.
where what was the second one? There was Zip, and then they had a new product.
Oh, they were the thicker 3.5 looking ones.
I'm sorry I did this. I'm gonna Google it. You can ask Chat GPT.
You probably can't because it's probably overloaded. I tried to ask it more stuff about WPF because there has to be just somebody that has a full, I don't know what it's called, full example of a custom title bar that doesn't use window Chrome.
That is so specific. I can't. Jazz Drive, by the way.
Jazz.
JAZ.
That sounds
Um,
very
yeah,
familiar.
you're all on your own. I will only say that I have
Oh
encountered
yeah,
similar problems. I'm just
I
gonna
can
say words
smell
at you.
this.
Jazz Drive. All right. I'm going to say words at you. Here you go.
Okay.
So we had the hardest problem troubleshooting our CADA autoscaler because we're running not I guess close to 1,000 CADA autoscalers at all times. And what we found, and this happened, what would happen was a third of our CADA autoscalers would time out and they wouldn't scale. And it was roughly a third. And you know what? We limped along allegedly. I don't talk about where I work. Allegedly, we limped along for like 6 months this way, where we would just have a third of our auto scaling not work a third of the time. But it was roughly random. So you can imagine, you set the interval really aggressive and working 2/3 of the time is pretty good too. So then I tried to upgrade it, which did not fix the problem. And then we found one problem, and it was called Keep Alive. Now you understand this because you do .NET development with
Right. Mm-hmm.
HTTP client.
Mm-hmm.
But in theory, you can keep the connection to the server alive after you make a HTTP call.
Mm-hmm.
You can do that. And CADA was doing that by default. Now, what would happen is the first 800 connections or whatever the number
I
was, they'd be
see.
fine. And then 15 seconds later, it would be like, well, it's time to check again. Let's make another 800 connections.
Right. Oh
And
my
then it would do
goodness.
another, and then eventually it would run out. It would get exhausted, and the
Yeah.
error messages were incredibly confusing. And finally, the other guy, my dev, who has no business looking at this stuff, but I'm very thankful he does because anyway, he told me, "Hey, what's this property? Can you try it?" And I went, "I'll
Yeah.
try it," and sure enough, it fixed the problem.
Oh
So,
geez.
so by default, CADA keeps connections alive. So I get,
That's really
unfortunately,
weird.
you can understand that. The point was
Yeah.
that I had to deal with an issue that you couldn't understand. But if I read the error message, you'd be like, Peter, what's this?
Peter. Peter.
What's this thing?
Yeah, but that sounds like who was it? Broken Sword, I think, was talking about an issue he had with a function because he would call the endpoint and it had a long running process or something, and then it would always just time out, or it would work the first time but not the second time. So it's like, yeah, you can increase your keep alive. And it's a header value, isn't it? That you send with the request.
Uh, for us, it was a Helm chart value, which is passed somewhere deep into the bowels of the actual program. Look, you don't even know about the layers
Man,
of. I was
no.
trying to explain to my coworker what a how the Prometheus operator for Kubernetes works, and it's so many layers of abstraction. Like you're like, well, where's the program? Where's the actual program running? What is the actual program doing? Because somewhere under the hood, there's a program running and is reading from a config file. But yeah, the answer is I learned just enough to set that value to true, like get a mental model for it that's a total guess, set that
Mhm.
value to true, and it happened to work. And I moved on with my day. And I thank the guy who had the idea because it wasn't me.
That's awesome. I mean,
Yeah,
crazy. It sucks, but it's crazy, but it's cool, but I like it.
mm, unfortunately. But anyway, so those are the things that happen. We just limp along for 6 months, allegedly, until we finally understand the issue. Or it becomes critical, which it kind of did, which is why I spent 2 days troubleshooting it. Anyway.
Yeah, those are the things that I won't talk about because it's like if I've somehow given away enough information that, the actual company and the actual product that I work on,
Mhm.
then it's like, here's a security vulnerability.
Yeah, I will. Yeah, that's another thing. Like, man, you just can't get good. Yeah, no one will talk about their infosec. Neither will I, by the way. Um, that's just wise. You can get
Definitely.
it out of
But
me though.
here's an official hello to you, Ramuk. Thank you so much for the follow. Today, you are listening to Peter and me, and anyone else. What time is it? Yeah, anyone else that feels like hopping into Discord, you're welcome to. We have a few voice channels in Discord. If you hop into one of them, I can pull you into the stream voice channel where your voice will come over on the stream and we can continue discussing tech topics. Today we started off topping with whipped cream and some chocolate syrup.
Nice.
Isn't that what you started with? Started talking about documentation, and we're
We
gonna
also established the Highlander doctrine. There can only
the
be
Highlander
one
doctrine.
on Twitch that does .NET. So one Kev Griff, you got to get out. You got to get out.
Bah.
Or he has to rename himself. He has to take the one out. That's
Yes,
that's
that's probably
with
best.
perfectly within reason. I think his
That,
Twitter handles that too, by the way. So
well,
it's
it
going to
would
be a
be
tough
best,
call.
just change all his accounts.
Yeah, just. uh, yeah,
I did
but
tell you
anyway,
that right when the YouTube handles came out, someone stole one lion,
that is pretty random.
and their name on their channel has nothing to do with one lion
He has videos.
from 2 years ago.
Randall has videos.
How dare! But that's okay because it gave us the opportunity to use the nickname that you guys so lovingly gave me, a Levendy Lion, or one of the nicknames.
Oh, with a D. Oh, that's.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Yeah, I will confess, of course, I'm not a YouTuber. I'm a YouTube consumer. I just don't. I pay for Twitch Turbo, and I think the lack of ads makes a big difference.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I
Anyway,
definitely would do it. I don't know. Right now, I've been having Twitch going for the streamers that I support, but I've had the tab muted because I've been so involved in the work that I'm doing. Just kind of sad. I used to be able to listen to streams and work at the same time, but
yeah. Well,
WPF.
they
WPF,
you blame
WPF.
WP.
I do.
If it wasn't for this cursed framework, I could only have focus and be still super effective. All right.
Exactly. Like if I
Yeah.
was only working on Blazor bugs, CSS, and UI, not a problem. But
Hmm.
this flippin' custom window.
Yeah.
My answer
Yeah.
is we just don't support Windows 10 anymore. With all of the machines out there that are still not compatible.
Yeah. Just don't worry about them. They're fine. They can upgrade, except for the ones that can't, but they can upgrade too. New hardware, it's fine.
Yeah,
Uh,
seriously. They've needed new hardware for a long time and they just needed a little push to get to it.
uh,
That's all.
my randomly my CPU on my one of my laptops is not compatible, so it will never move over to Windows 11. Of course, it is like 5+ years old at this point. So
That's the case with my mobile studio, actually.
mm,
That will forever be Windows 10
yeah,
from this point until the end of time. And it's such a good little device. So
mm.
powerful.
Actually, I need to look at it now that I think about it because it's what's it called? Oh, I may need to start dual booting. It has a sweet GPU, so I might have
Oh,
secret designs. It has a 1080 in it. Whenever the 1080 came out, I bought an incredible battle station, and it is the heaviest thing I've ever seen or heard of.
I think that's what
And
Andrew's using.
so it actually is a pretty good GPU for random.
That's not how you get to system info. System information.
Okay.
Hardware.
We haven't even, I don't even know if you've
Quotes.
moved your cursor in Visual Studio, and that's okay.
I went like this.
I'm just saying, like, I don't know if there's been a single thing typed in
We don't
Visual
need
Studio
to
today,
type
and that's
anything.
okay.
Uh-uh.
We don't need it.
Yeah, I'm using a 1080 on this computer,
Okay.
and it still performs amazingly.
My other, yeah, one of mine, yeah, I've got computers. Anyway, I have a 1080 that broke. It started vaulting after a minute of use, and then it would be okay. It was kind of weird. If you could, like, it might still be okay. Chat, I need help. 1080. After loading different games on Windows, it starts blowing up. And then I ran the 3D Mark benchmark to kind of
Mhm.
put it to stress, and it definitely blows up. But then Later, it can like after the first blow up, it goes for a bit longer.
And by blow up, you mean your display just completely blacks out?
No, the game crashes. Whatever I'm running
Oh, game
crashes.
crashes. Okay.
Yeah. And I haven't tested except on one Windows OS because why would I? Why would I dual boot or whatever to test it out? But I did try multiple apps, so 2 games and a benchmark tool.
Is it OCCT that you're using?
I don't know what that is.
I would recommend OCCT. It's maybe
Oh, a benchmark tool. Well,
I
it's too late. I
used
already
to.
replaced it.
Well,
I
it's oh, you already replaced it.
I
But you
replaced
said
it,
you
but I
needed
will.
help.
I look. I still have it. I refuse to throw it away. Like it's a
Mm, mm.
1080,
Yes, exactly.
and if it works, then I'm throwing away something I paid a lot of money for.
Do you know much about hardware then? Because
I
I
no.
have another computer that I haven't turned on in a million billion years, and
Mm,
he has a yes, it's a he has a
mm.
2080 Super.
Ooh,
Do you know the difference between a 2080 Super and a 2080 Ti?
nope. Why?
Because I don't understand that. Because I want to know if that one would be better than this 1080 that I'm using in this
Oh,
machine. Because that computer is older than this machine.
I'm
The name is different.
Ye- I'm clicking. I'm gonna go to
I
my
mean, I
20
did
year
do
old
internet
website.
looking, but I read about
It
it and I'm like, okay, it's negligible. But,
maybe that's the
um,
answer. So if you've read that, that was literally what I was going to do was be like, where, how is it? Uh, $1,000, 100, dang. All right. So Walmart's selling it randomly, according to this. Anyway, whatever.
yeah.
Yeah, whose benchmarks? Here's an important internet question. Whose benchmarks do you use? Like, where do you go for benchmarks? This is a random
I don't know
question.
their name.
I've gone to Tom's Hardware since they
Tom's
existed, but I've
Hardware
been
is a, yeah.
told they're they may not be the best, but I still use them and
I also
whatever.
use PC Gamer. Is that one?
I don't know. I don't know.
PC
I am
Gamer
legitimately asking. I
benchmark.
guess I would judge you if your answer is bad enough, but I don't judge. That's what I'll claim.
I think
So,
I've used this once or twice. I haven't needed to for a long time because our computers
hmm,
are stable.
hmm,
They do what I want them to do. Now that I'm
uh,
using Stable Diffusion stuff, I'm kind of
mhm.
wanting to get a 12 gigabyte VMem video memory card.
Yeah, that yeah, the Nvidia's nerfing their RAM amounts, and AMD's are giving so much, but then nothing runs on AMD yet.
Right, exactly. At
But
least
in
not
theory,
without extreme workarounds.
and I don't know, it's the CUDA,
Mm-hmm.
CUDA.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that word existed, and then I ran our little AI vendor that I will not talk about, and they required CUDA, and
Yeah.
now I understand it a little better.
Yeah. And a lot of it has to do with the programming language for one, and then for two, the way that it actually processes the stuff. And I only know about that because we are partnered with NVIDIA
Ah,
and I get to attend like the keynote, for example. I was there live.
huh. Was it in Denver?
I was virtually there live.
Oh,
It was
okay. Okay.
in San
That
Antonio.
doesn't count. It doesn't count. If you weren't there live, look, this is, I'm sorry, it doesn't count. Actually, I know what you mean. It does count if you're
Yeah.
getting secret info early.
It
Man, I
well,
never
no,
got
actually
secret
that's a
info.
lie. It was a watch party where the watch
Okay.
party was there live. And NVIDIA representative, the one that probably is in charge of relations with Sagetti, is the
Mhm.
one that was presenting there, and then we went to the keynote.
Okay. Cool. So interesting. I yeah, I got nothing.
So
Um,
yeah,
E3's
but
canceled. There's your gamer news.
oh
E3's
no.
canceled. Don't worry, all the shows are still happening. But E3's canceled. There you go. There's your gamer segment for today, and that is we're done.
My gamer
Back
segment
to
is Simple Game Dev, who I've been working on
oh,
with Dukasoft over there.
hmm, nice. Game dev doesn't count though, because it's dev. Is it more game than dev? That's the real question. If it
His is
does,
more game than dev. Well,
okay.
his is he loves working in creating levels and stuff. He does know how to code, but he doesn't like to. How do you not like to write code,
I mean,
Peter?
it's the ickiness. It's the ickiness of it. If you don't understand it, it's icky in your brain. Your brain has brain ickiness, and then you kind of like feel this sense of pain and ickiness, and then you don't. You try and do something else. You're like, why don't I use a visual workflow tool? Sounds great. I get it.
Yeah, that was the hardest one. Like I was trying to learn Unity,
Yeah.
and it was like everything is you drag lines from square boxes, and that's how
Oh,
you write the logic.
yeah.
Can I just
Like,
write C sharp or even
yeah,
C++?
can you
I don't care.
wri- write code and then convert it to those boxes afterwards at least?
And I
And
think
maybe
you
I can.
can. It's just ugh.
But then you want to test and attach the debugger and all that, like all the tools we have, and then they throw them all away and build a visual tool.
That's icky to me.
That is icky to
Ugh.
me as well. And I that is icky to me as well. I
But I kind of need to learn it for something that I want to do,
ah okay. Yep,
which
yep.
is called Comfy UI.
Mm.
Comfy UI. Comfy UI,
No, I
which
heard
is
it.
another image generating model, text to image, that uses nodes.
Wait, but why?
Because
Okay,
right now, if you're
simpler.
using stuff like Stable Diffusion or Midjourney or Invoke
Yeah.
AI or whatever, you
Yeah.
have one prompt, one negative prompt, and then the model that you want to use. This one, supposedly, you can do different parts of the same image with one massive node. Oh, I don't know where to find that thing.
You're not
Examples?
reading the documentation. I'm just going to throw that out there.
I
You're
was.
going to do it now. All right, I'm reading Mojo. Mojo's back.
Welcome back.
Fix the focus trigger and should be fine. Good luck. Uh, make it work. Test it. All right. Chat GPT. Oh, don't despair, Abacus. Don't despair.
I'm not worried about it.
All right, I have a serious take, Abacus.
I do too.
All right, here we
You
go.
first.
Here's my real quick, by example, serious take. I went to the doctor's office and they had me, and went to their brand new iPad and filled out my info and said, I'm here. Then I walked up to the lady and she gave me a paper form and I filled out the same info. And then I handed it back to her. And then she went and typed it into her computer.
Oh my
And I
goodness.
cannot emphasize how long ago that technology has existed. So that lady was employed part of the time to answer the phone and to type in data that I had literally entered 10 feet away 5 seconds ago. So there is a serious point here, which is I think the phrase is the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. I think I mangled that quote, but the future is here. It's just not evenly distributed. So yeah, some people, we're going to be telling GPT to harvest apples, which by the way, we already have sweet machines for most of
Oh,
the agricultural type stuff.
yeah.
And we're going to have GPT to help us write proper grammar, maybe. That seems like
Yeah.
an obvious
Like all
improvement.
of and I don't like that they're calling this Copilot, but all of Microsoft's Copilot integrations for Office 365 looks insane.
I love when Microsoft does the Microsoft naming thing. I'm just going to point out, this is rant. This may be a first rant. If you remember the active keyword, they named like 4 different things active,
Yeah,
and
like
none of them
Active
had any
Directory.
relation. Yeah, go ahead, list them. Active Directory, um, ActiveX,
ActiveX, right?
ActiveX controls, Um, okay, my favorite was Active Desktop, which was literally like the Rain desktop that had Rain on it and
Oh
used to have your
yeah.
computer.
Aw.
It was sweet looking and it used to have your computer. That was Active Desktop. And there was a fourth active that I can't totally remember, but there at least four. But I mean, there have been so many
Yeah.
actives. Now we still have Active Directory. No one knows why it's named Active. But anyway, if Copilot had existed back then, it would be Copilot Directory
Yeah.
and Copilot Desktop and
And what I
Copilot.
think they're, and this is all my opinion yet
Yeah, yeah.
again, what I think they're doing is trying to essentially, like, we own GitHub, right? Microsoft owns GitHub. But there's
I
another
own it.
team
Yeah.
that created Copilot.
Yep.
And they're like, well, this is ours. So everything AI generating is gonna be Copilot. So we can flood it with Copilot as being tied to Microsoft and not being tied to GitHub, kind of thing. Because
Oh my
we are the
goodness. Mojo
source.
wants Adam. Mojo, you're diseased. All right. This is where if you have hot takes, you got to take the flame right back. Adam can die in a fire. I'm just saying it. Like VS Code is clearly the evolution of Adam, and it is an evolution forward.
I
Look,
haven't heard much about Adam lately, to be fair, but I
I mean, it's
know that
dead.
it was one of the lowest performing. Or no, I'm thinking of the other one. What's the other one? Starts with S, I think.
Sublime text.
Sublime. So am I backwards?
Sublime is the one that is unrelated, and Adam and VS Code like basically said these are great ideas in Sublime. Let's steal all of them. And I guess Sublime stole it from TextMate in the Mac. Like, forget the old Mate. People were crazy about TextMate.
I
Anyway,
have no idea about anything Mac.
Mojo, try out Sublime Text and see if you like it. They might even
Yeah.
have LSP support now, which means you could actually maybe use it. Because back then we used to just put up with like this syntax highlighting isn't working great, but it's good enough. Like if you used any of the weird string syntax, like it would almost guaranteed break your syntax highlighting. Now they have an LSP, they actually understand. It's great. Except for these old text editors that don't have LSP support. Anyway,
Right.
good
But
times.
yeah, so then I think I was thinking about it correctly where I was watching a JavaScript developer in
Mm-hmm.
those days,
Mm-hmm.
and he used one or the other, and he's like, the reason that I don't use the other is because it has so many performance issues.
Adam was slow.
Yeah.
Adam was the slow one. Sublime, you don't mind Sublime. VS Code looks like insert. Okay.
Yeah,
Oh,
true.
whatever. We'll accept your flaming in the spirit in which it was offered. So I don't. Uh, basically, again, just look at the pinned. Oh, you unpinned it, which is perfect. There
I
was a
didn't.
pinned message that said,
Everything you say
anyway,
is
everything
hogwash.
I'm saying is hogwash. I will just repeat it. Don't pin it. I'm just gonna say that every 1 hour. So, no.
Um,
So yeah,
I was just
what do we
talking about
get?
Copilot, and there is GitHub Copilot X in Visual Studio, which I am signed up for, by the way.
Hmm.
Hopefully, we will see that in action just to play around with it. So, have you? You're the one that told me about it. Somebody told me
Mm-mm.
about it.
Mm. Yeah,
GitHub.
someone.
Oh, Nerd Herder told me about it.
Mm.
GitHub Copilot X is Copilot with the power of Chat GPT.
Hmm. We'll see. We will see. Um, I will say I yesterday took a Helm chart we were deploying with Terraform. I just took the Terraform code, verified there were no secrets in it, and then shoved it to ChatGPT and said, change this to a bash script, and it did a good job. So,
Yeah, it's really
and
good at that one, in my
yeah,
opinion.
programming, man. Like,
Yeah.
it's going to be great. I hope because programming, it makes sense. Like, we are all trying to achieve the same goal. It's kind of dumb that we don't have the proper abstractions to just let us send less information. Like, hey, I just
Mhm.
want to do the thing everyone's doing. But anyway, so it is.
Actually, that's a topic I wouldn't mind exploring or diving into more. But
Mm-hmm.
it sounded like you were just now talking about that. You want some kind of mechanism where people have there's so much code out there already. People have come up with creative solutions for solving X problem. You're working on X problem or problem that looks like X. Can I just have some really easy way to say, use this person's implementation
Yep.
and only send the necessary bits of information to that code?
I've already told my friend this rant, so here goes. All right. So I fully have thought about this, and of course, again, keep in mind everything I say is hogwash. But I do see it as a new kind of like abstraction where you have a high level goal and ChatGPT helps get you to the goal. But I
Mm-hmm.
think the best example is like want to build a restaurant website. So
Mm-hmm.
20 years
Mm-hmm.
ago, you say I want to build a restaurant website, and someone painfully, or let's say 25 years ago, someone painfully sets up a CGI bin.
Oh,
This is
God.
pre PHP. Maybe they learned about PHP. They set up Apache with mod PHP, I think. Whatever. And then you're talking to MySQL and you have a database for no reason. And it costs you like $1 million or whatever to pay a
Right.
consulting company to do it. I don't know. I'm just saying. So then, modern day, you're going to jump and say, well, I can ask ChatGPT to build me a restaurant website. But the real answer is you go search for a software as a service product. You search for a product, a SaaS product, and there are thousands and maybe millions of SaaS products out there now that will say, I will host your restaurant website for you. I will solve the problem with Google Maps. I will get you on Google Maps with your,
Mm-hmm.
website and your phone number listed, and I will check your SEO for you and solve that problem. And I will do it almost for free because it's basically the same problem with every restaurant. Just upload it,
Right.
I'll make it
Yeah.
mobile, all that. And so
Responsive, etc. Yeah.
my point is like I think the real abstraction is to use a SaaS product that has actually happened already. People are using SaaS products for various things. And of course, we have libraries. I think another easy example is sending an email. Like you can say, ChatGPT, how do I host, what is it called? SendMail?
And mail.
ChatGPT, how do I host SendMail? And it can tell you, right?
Oh, just send mail.
And maybe a future ChatGPT, you can say, hey, here's my domain account with whatever registrar. Go set up all the records I
Yeah,
need,
where
and
it
maybe it'll
actually
do
does
it.
it for you. Yeah.
But the real answer is, I just sign up for a product that already exists if it's common enough.
Mm.
And I just skipped the middle part where I said maybe, you know, how do I say this? CMSs from 10 years ago, people would just set up a lot of WordPress sites, and that got the job done a lot cheaper than the CGI bin $1 million website. So I don't know. That's just an example. I like thinking about things through example. Restaurant website. There you go.
And that makes sense. There was, oh, yeah, what I think might be an issue is Open AI is trying to keep it like we don't endorse any one specific product. And so if they start doing that, then they're going to be like, here's this SaaS product that you could use. Want me to set it up for you? And it's like, oh, you're just going to do that based off of what is paying you more to keep you running.
That's a
Kind of
great
thing.
point. That's how Google makes their money, right? Like
Exactly. Yeah.
the top of the results. Like here's my first option, which is sponsored. Hmm. I didn't even think about that.
And it's even gotten a lot worse lately where you have maybe the top 6 or 7 items that are sponsored now.
Yeah, I feel bad when I actually like a company and I search for it on Google or for whatever reason I end up doing a Google search for it and I like the company and the first one's sponsored and I know if I click the sponsored link it's going to cost them money, but whatever, I do it sometimes. But also I don't like the sponsored link because sometimes you don't totally trust, anyway, you don't trust the fact that the actual company sponsored it or if someone's just hijacking their keywords. Anyway, what could go wrong? It's just incredibly important personal account. Anyway,
Yeah. I think we
just my
could
Twitch
take
account. That's a
your
joke.
Twitch account.
Yeah, most important.
Oh, yes. I think we could take your idea though and like I don't know. OpenAI should have it like the AI that is used should have its own suite. So make it a competitor with except companies are investing in them, but make it a competitor with cloud services, existing cloud services,
Mm.
where it has its own cloud service that
We'll
it can
see.
host your apps and set up stuff for you. And same thing with SaaS, have its own SaaS products that it created on its own
See, I don't
after
think, yeah.
looking at everyone else's.
After, yeah, we'll see. I don't think you can. I don't think it'll be good enough to do that. Like these products have been honed based on feedback for years and years of thousands of users, but maybe I'm underestimating it. But I see it as like. By the way, the thing you're saying, having GPT actually do things. Of course, this is where you have it hook it up to a robotics factory and then it makes Terminators. I've seen that movie. I have seen that movie.
I know how this works.
Yeah, the hand, you got to make sure
Transcended.
they melt
Oh.
the hand. Because if they recover just the hand, that's enough to rebuild it.
Yeah.
Anyway, but hooking it up to, I know someone has at least a bunch of plugins. Was that no OpenAI directly, right? They have plugins now.
Yes.
Yeah, we'll see. I'm not sure where that's going to go because Siri, in theory, is already has all these plugins that rhymed.
Theory in
In
theory.
theory, or you can ask, "Hey Alexa, buy a
And you just
dollhouse."
activated everyone's Alexa. Good job, you.
Yeah, there you go. I did it on purpose. But I think they have better AI now where they can figure out that it's coming over a speaker somehow. I forget how they know.
Oh.
Voice analysis.
Well, I
They
know
can
that
tell.
like I kept saying stuff like okay, cool. Notice I put the pause in there. And my phone would
Oh,
activate,
okay,
and
good.
it
Yeah,
also activated. I think it was Nerd Herder. Now that I'm talking about him a lot, Nerd Herder's phone.
mm, yeah.
It's like
I
stop
just turned
saying
all that off. But in theory, you
that.
could say the same thing for all these digital. Like, I don't see the difference between hooking up Open AI,
Right.
ChatGPT, and
Right.
Siri or Alexa.
Yeah.
Uh,
I
yeah, I
mean,
don't see the
isn't that
difference at all.
essentially the product that they're selling now? Is you can connect it to whatever your app is and have it do the stuff for you. Dukasov, stop! My phone. How dare!
I don't know what they're selling. I'll be honest. They're selling per token. A lot of people are buying, or
Oh
what is it?
yeah, yeah.
Their monthly. They got a lot of
Increases in
users,
token. Yeah.
so we'll see.
Now I
And
know
there's
what
an
tokens
open
are.
source. There's an inferior open source large language model out, which is encouraging
Right.
because
Yes.
this
I
is, we
saw
went
that.
through like when I was coming up, it was like really expensive to get anything on the internet. Having a T1 line was like hundreds of dollars a month to get co-located, and then you could have
Yes.
shared hosting, and that's all you could do was I'll do my shared PHP or shared ASP.NET.
I
Um,
use Dyn DNS.
oh, you did? Okay.
Yeah.
Speaking of, I need to figure out how to open up my home network to that kind of thing. I have a problem with it only allows a single connection through. I need to test to see if it's my router or my
Mm.
modem that's doing that to me.
Just put a load balancer in there. You'll be
Oh
fine.
goodness. Yeah.
And make sure you buy
And I'm also a
a
simple
hardware
man.
firewall. And
Yeah, that's I I actually have some non-techie friends who, for whatever reason, decided they needed a network closet, and it's the most ridiculous thing. Uh, they usually have home security systems, so I guess in theory they have these Ethernet cables running over to a camera, but like, man, you don't need a home network. And I'm trying to avoid like buying any hardware. I have a modem allegedly and a router that is behind the modem, and that's all I've got. And it's consumer, and I'm hoping to keep using it. Anyway,
I'm just really concerned with the way that CenturyLink does it here. We have the modem, but it's on the side of the house in this case that is not even locked. And then a cable that
oh,
goes
it's
in
not
through a
locked.
pipe. No,
So
cable that goes in through a pipe that comes down to the wiring closet thing.
so, so and the one that and you're doxing your neighborhood. I get not your neighborhood. You're doxing
Maybe it'll get
your
CenturyLink to
regional
do
yeah
something.
cable. But the point is they're So you're saying punk kids could show up with their laptop and plug in to
Yeah,
your
it
router?
seems like it. I haven't been outside much, but it's like, yeah. When I look at it, it's plugged into an outlet that is outside, like with an
Mm,
actual AC adapter. So the minimum thing that they could do to mess with people in this neighborhood is unplug their modems on all of their
yeah,
houses.
plug in their electric vehicles to it. That's what I'd
Yeah.
do. That's what's up. That's what's up.
Have you seen stuff like that? I never thought that that would
No,
be a thing.
I
That'd be
just dream of it.
hilarious, though.
I'm in an apartment right now, and it's I just dream of like just finding one of those outdoor plugs and just running a cable. But I don't have an electric car, which is makes it funny.
Oh
But
no,
I'm like, I could do that. It would be free.
no.
Not really free. It's called stealing, but that's free. That is technically free. Anyway, just anyway, yeah. What do we got? Yeah.
I don't know. I'm lost still. I'm trying not to keel over.
Well, that is almost
I'm also
certainly
trying not to
spam.
say that I'm in a lot of pain out loud, and I just
Okay,
did.
you just did. Well, be
Well,
well, sir.
I'm working on it,
Be well. And you're standing, so
and I'm standing.
hey,
It's
you're
better
still
than
standing.
sitting.
That's a
Yeah.
literal statement and figurative. Still standing.
I feel like I'm gonna fall over any minute though, but that's fine. We're good. See, scar tissue.
Yep, scar tissue.
Mine just has to do with like physical body stuff.
Hmm.
Me in programming, it's like this is how to do or what feels right, and you need to use morals and value judgments when you write code. It's not just let's do the minimum thing necessary, let's do it the right way. We have to. That's where I need to get a little bit more scar tissue.
See, yeah, I don't know.
That is a
I was,
conversation if you
yeah,
have takes on that. How much
well,
effort should a developer really put into doing it correctly versus efficiently versus
um, this is, let's see. All right, are you ready for the ultimate hot take? I've been so
yes.
kind all day.
Now's the time.
Now's the time. This is, I believe that consulting companies exist to sell billable hours. And as long as the customer is happy enough and you're not being sued, which happens
More
at every
often than
consulting company
yeah.
I've been at. Um, as long as you're not being sued and they are happy enough that you are doing good work. So your definition of they should care is by nature, how do I say this? Uh, it's too much to ask because your other
Mhm.
coworkers might understand that it actually doesn't matter and
Mhm.
they just
Not
need to
just
keep the
not just
customer happy
understand.
enough.
They're definitely trying to actively sell that to me.
Oh, okay. So that I think that is a natural state of being at especially selling contracting. Um, but I think all consulting. Anyway,
Then I
so I'm
agree
no
with
longer
you.
working
Yeah.
for a contracting company or consulting company. And so,
And I'm
uh,
getting in my experience now so that I
yeah,
can give the same advice you gave me so
there
that
you
someone else can ignore it and then do it themselves
go. So yeah,
and experience it and understand for real that you were telling the absolute truth.
well, I experienced it twice at different. There are better companies and worse, and and your experience within a company can be very different based on the project. That's what everyone will tell you. Base depends on the project because basically you'll either get people who feel the same way as you do, or you're completely alone and it's just like
Yeah.
I don't know.
Oops.
How do I say this? Uh, a lot of looking good to the client and
Right.
making
Posturing.
excuses. Yeah, posturing is a good word. But anyway,
Mhm.
depending on and projects, and if you're noisy, you can get a different project, even if,
Right. If I
but
wanted
you
to.
just, yeah, if you want to. That's your only out right now, aside from getting a new job. So, all right, what? It's good enough. And that showed up on the screen, so
Oh, it's so what it feels like, though.
it's above your head.
I'm gonna stand by it. I mean, I stand by everything that I say. I
Yep,
mean,
sure. Yeah, and that's a good attitude. Just don't. No, I mean because you don't want to be passive aggressive. You want to be like, look, I will happily discuss it with you
and I
when we're
have,
in person.
I sure
And
have.
yeah, I will. Anyway, it's all good.
I am, I,
Uh,
I am doing it less with my project manager because he's not mature enough to have discussions. So
yeah,
it's like, we'll just go with what you say to do. Narrator, they brought up an issue. That issue points to all of these other issues that we have that are in similar things, but they're only talking about this one screen, so fix it only in that one screen and then tell them to recheck.
yeah. And this, like, there's also like, what is your percent? Like, if you had a percent, we're at 1:20 p.m. You could leave anytime. If you had a percent, what would you say is the percent you think is an appropriate amount to spend on, let's call it not immediately urgent refactoring, not
S-
immediately urgent improvements.
I don't say that it's a percent, but I say like the way that I get to it is now that I have experience talking with a client,
Yeah.
getting requirements, understanding what they want to see, it's let's implement what they say they want, put that as our priority. While we're doing it, make sure that we're implementing it the right way, the complete way, and not just cutting corners. Because the more corners you cut, the more backlog you have for cleaning it up.
Yeah.
Right now, we're at a point where we're on code freeze
Yeah.
because we're going to do a release. Now is the
Mm.
time to go back and clean up all of the other stuff for the next release. And then at the
Ah,
beginning of the next release iteration, that's when you are getting the requirements from the customer, doing your backlog, implementing new features, code freeze, code cleanup.
yeah. And yeah, it is a kind of a negotiation. I try and fit it all. How do I say this? Like, first of all, you're saying there's a code freeze. Is there a total code freeze, or you mean like a code freeze for features so that you don't
Yeah,
add any
for the
regression
release
bugs?
branch, essentially. Yeah.
But you have bug fixes going in, I assume. So it's kind of, I mean, or someone has bug fixes
Or
somewhere.
yeah, like the bug fixes are this is what is currently in test. They're testing it. We aren't
Yeah.
making any modifications to that. That's what is assumed to be the final product.
Okay.
Unless they
All right.
say, here's a bug, then we fix that bug, make a new test, freeze that.
So my whole thing, and I think some people think they have to go 100%. This isn't you, by the way. I have no idea what you do, but like you've said what you do, but some people I feel like they feel rushed. Like I don't know if you've experienced team members who feel like we
Mm-hmm.
need to rush and finish this, get as many things in the sprint as possible. And of course, I use the term sprint because, of course, it's Scrum
I said iteration. Ha ha
iteration.
ha.
Nice.
I'm
Um,
trying not to use the copywritten or trademark word or whatever it's
uh,
called.
it's called Game Master, not Dungeon Master, which is trademarked by
Yes.
Wizards of the Coast. Okay, there you go. I understood.
Yeah,
Um,
continue.
so the whole point is, I would just say like I sneak those in all the time, like with
Mm-hmm.
every
Mm-hmm.
story. And I mean sneak in like unrelated. And when you're doing a
Oh,
pull
geez,
request,
that one I don't know how to do.
your teammate has to be in on it.
Oh.
So when they're reviewing your pull request and you have like all
Oh.
these features for the story, and then you have
Mm-hmm.
like completely unrelated changes on a different commit,
Yeah.
like yes, they can call you on it, but like I think everyone should be in on it. Like in a
Yeah.
certain percentage. This is a conspiracy chat. You can be part of the conspiracy. Just do the small fixes all the time. But it only this is the thing. Mojo said earlier, and this was interesting. He said, I want to rewrite the entire CSS. You do have to resist that. You have to resist that.
Yeah.
But you
Strip it
can
out.
spend some percentage of your time. I don't know what that percent is. I'm just gonna say 20. I'm gonna say 20% of
It's
your
pretty
time can
high.
be used for unrelated. That's a pretty high one.
Yeah.
Um, with every story, I don't I but this is a team thing. Like will they start will they start noticing and saying you just spend all your time not working on business features? That's where you don't
Right.
want to do it. And you don't want to actually do that where you're actually just, well, I decided
Only
I need
doing
to
business.
refactor and I'm going to be the refactoring developer.
And I will say that that is what's happening on our team. Because at the beginning, I was agreeing with you. I'm like, hey, I have a
Oh,
teammate that is doing this, where they're
yeah,
like, these are things that have existed in the app for 10
yeah,
years that are, we get dinged for every time.
yeah, yeah,
I'm going to go ahead and fix that.
yeah,
But lately it's been, that's the only thing that they're fixing, not the current iterations features.
yeah. So there is a percentage, and like you've got to be aware that you're going to want that percentage to be 100, and then
Yeah. But you also don't
some
want it
of
to be zero.
yeah, you don't want to be me sometimes where I'm like, well, scar tissue, ship it. It's garbage. Ship more garbage. Just ship it. So I don't know. Like, um, yeah. Mojo says there's another
Jeez.
repo that may have the beginning of a
May
front end.
or may not
Look,
have.
you got to finish. This is the thing, Mojo. You can, if you're going to do something crazy like that, you have to finish. If you finish, you'll be a legend
Right.
forever. And they will also
Right.
blame you for literally everything that happens going forward on the front
Yep.
end on that project.
And I
But
can attest to that because that's exactly what happened to me.
I still remember the story of our front end guy who rewrote our CSS and made it better. Hilariously, I can't remember what he changed, so I don't know if he made anything better and easier to use. But like developer use, you know what I mean? Like
Right.
the DX
Or development. Yes.
for development. But anyway, he's a legend. You can be that legend, but you better finish. You're gonna long weekend. Um, and I don't mean work on the weekend, but I do kind of mean it for
Yeah.
these
Oh
kind
man.
of things. You
That's
got to get
another
ahead of the team.
topic. Oh, this is a great topic.
Well,
Billable
it's
hours
definitely.
versus how much you actually work.
Oh goodness, that yeah,
And I said it during a client meeting, and again, I'm going to stand by what I say,
yeah,
but they were making a half joke because that's how you get by. That's
yeah,
how you slip it through the system.
yeah,
Like, my project manager needed to take care of an email that needed to be sent to someone. He was having trouble finding the verbiage because it's some UI stuff that needs to be addressed, or it's some backend thing that he's not fully familiar with it. So he's asking the people involved with that to help him word it. And it's like, yeah, I'll certainly help you first thing in the morning. He's like, well, can you stay after the meeting? I'm like, I'm actually officially off work. I am not billing currently because the meeting goes from 3 to 4 my time. And I could fudge my hours so that I stop billing later, but I don't. I have a schedule that I stick to for myself for my mental health.
yep. That is smart.
And so 3:30 is when I am done for the day, done billing.
Billable hours. It's a great shield. I remember my last client. They said, hey, we're gonna go into crunch mode. And what was funny, by the way, is the employees did not go into crunch mode, but the boss wanted them to. But they were like, eh. And then about a third of them quit within the next year.
Mm-hmm.
Because he was still applying the pressure. Anyway, he said, we're going into crunch mode. And I had a meeting with our consultants, and I was like, by the way, if this is your first time consulting, we don't do overtime.
Yeah,
So just present it as sorry, we work 40 hours a week and our company
exactly.
doesn't pay us extra to work more.
Right.
And there's not even points I don't know if y'all have a point system.
We don't.
Uh, then,
We got nothing. Like, not even recognition for anything. Not that I care about recognition. It's
yeah,
just.
yeah. Well, anyway, the point is there were no points, no reward at all, and it was intentional. And my boss told me that it was intentional, such that there was no reward for working overtime because they did not
Right.
want you
Right.
working overtime, even though it was super profitable. Apparently, by the way, if you bill, by the way, you have to bill those hours. So anyway, whatever.
Yep.
Yeah, when I was a contractor, I billed literally every hour. I actually tracked my time, and what it
Mhm.
ended up happening was I would take a week of vacation because I never made 40. I was the worst contractor. I would never make 40 a week. So
Jeez.
anyway, but I billed every single hour. So anyway, I recommend you do the same and
I
you
am
take
the
off.
opposite, where I'm kind of like on Tuesdays and Thursdays, there's this 2 hour time period, which
Mm,
is like I stream for 2 hours in the
mm,
middle of the day. That's
Mm,
that 2 hours that I get
mm.
on Tuesdays and Thursdays. And then there's like this time from 1:30 to 3:30 where I could be working, but I'm really not billing hours at that point in time. So, yeah.
Well, yeah. I like the shield of like, well, I have billable hours. I'm gonna, take off Friday. Just declare things. It's great. It's like, have you ever seen the old WWF? I have not seen it in 20 years, but like the old WWF
My
where
brother
like
used to watch it, so yeah.
Vince McMahon would say like, you'd have to fight, and then like he'd announce it in the ring, and then that would become truth, and then the other guy would say, okay, but it's gonna be in the cage, and then the match would have to be in the cage because they had spoken it aloud during the show,
Right.
and it was like it became law because they had spoken it. So I feel like consulting's a lot like that. You're like,
Yeah.
all right, holding the mic, but I ain't working tomorrow, and then like you drop your mic and run out, and everyone's like, whoa. Anyway,
All right, but you're gonna do extra hours on Friday.
yeah, and that it's like whatever they can get away with. Of course, if you
Right.
try that
Yeah.
too much, you will how do we say that? Get fired if you go too far.
Right.
I ain't working ever again, and I'm billing anyway. Like, you might
No.
get fired. There's a level. All right, all right, chat. What's your percentage? I'm gonna say
What
10 to
is the percentage
20%
of time spent on cleanup?
cleanup. Also, it's 1:31. We shouldn't have even asked chat.
Oh, that's fine.
Chat, you don't exist. It's too late. No one exists after the 30-minute mark right
The
now.
30-minute mark. I don't even exist.
I don't either. I agree.
Oof. Okay.
Yeah,
Well,
yeah.
we'll wait for some responses while I do
No.
the closing. But do you have any closing words, as I always ask?
Uh, be well, and yeah, Chat GPT will not. Don't be a doomer. Don't be a doomer. That's a serious point for society. Don't be a
It
doomer.
really
And
is.
remember, I had to fill out a paper form in the year 2023. Paper.
Just to have someone else enter it into a computer by
Mhm.
hand.
Later.
Okay. Awesome. So much fun times. I really, really do enjoy these Friday streams. I do hope we get to continue having them for quite some time. So thank you, Peter, for hanging out. I'm gonna go to this screen. Um, that's gonna be it for my time today and this week. I hope you guys have a fantastic weekend and enjoy yourselves. I should be back on Monday. I don't have any weird things coming up on my schedule for Monday, Wednesday, Fridays yet, but I might. But you might. Except for a new meeting that well, no, that's Thursday. Just kidding. But yeah, that's gonna be it. I'm not gonna rate anyone today because I need to step away from my desk, like right now. So I will talk with you guys again the next time I see you. And always feel free to hop into our Discord. Thank you, Dukasaw, for all of the posted links. I will be posting this video to the YouTubes, this time with my guest speaker's voice throughout the whole stream, to YouTube no sooner than 24 hours after I end the stream. And yeah, enjoy. Ciao for now. I'm going to turn the music up. Here I go. Here I go. Here I go again. I'm going to mute my mic and then my camera. Bye.
Blazor!